If I suffer for you, will you love me? Baby, baby, please don't go. I think I'm getting high on feeling low. It was necessary for me to lean across several stacked canvases in order to read the framed verse that hung in the middle of the cluttered apartment's living room wall. Time-worn and faded, the old-fashioned landscape with its printed poem read, "My dear mother, mother, dear mother, when I think of you, I want to be all that is fine, that is true, all that is worthy, noble or grand, has come from you, mother. From your guiding hand." Lisa, an artist of very modest income whose living quarters doubled as her art studio, waved at the poem and laughed lightly. "It's too much, isn't it? So corny." But her next words betrayed a deeper sentiment. "I saved it when a friend of mine was moving and going to throw it out. She'd gotten it from a thrift store as a joke. I think there's some truth to it, though, don't you?" Then she laughed again and said ruefully, "Loving my mother has gotten me into a lot of trouble with men." At this, Lisa paused and reflected. Tall, with wide-set green eyes and long, straight dark hair, she was a beauty. She motioned me to sit on a quilt-covered mattress in a relatively uncrowded corner of the floor and offered me tea. As it brewed, she remained silent for a few moments. Lisa had come to my attention through a mutual friend who had told me some of her history. Because she had grown up with alcoholism in her family, Lisa was a co-alcoholic. The word co-alcoholic simply refers to someone who has developed an unhealthy pattern of relating to others as a result of having been closely involved with someone with the disease of alcoholism. Whether the alcoholic has been a parent, spouse, child, or friend, their relationship usually causes certain feelings and behavior to develop in the co-alcoholic. Low self-esteem, a need to be needed, a strong urge to change and control others, and a willingness to suffer. In fact, all the characteristics of women who love too much are usually present in the daughters and wives of alcoholics and other addicts. I already knew that the effects of a childhood spent trying to take care of and protect her alcoholic mother had profoundly influenced how Lisa related to men later in life. I waited patiently, and soon she began to offer some details. She was the middle of 3 children, between an older sister who was the reason for her parents' hasty marriage, and a younger brother who was another surprise, born 8 years after Lisa. While her mother was still drinking, Lisa was the product of their only planned pregnancy. I always thought my mother was perfect, maybe because I needed so badly for her to be. I made her into the mother I wanted and then told myself that I would be just like her. What a fantasy one lived in. Lisa shook her head and continued, "I was born when she and my father were most in love, so I was her favorite. Even though she said she loved us all the same, I knew that I was very special to her. We always spent as much time together as we could. When I was very young, I guess she did take care of me, but after a while we changed roles and I started taking care of her. My father was horrible most of the time. He treated her rudely and gambled all our money away. He made a good salary as an engineer, but we never had anything and we were always moving. You know, that little poem describes the way I wanted it to be much more than the way it really was. I'm finally beginning to see that. All my life I wanted my mother to be the person that poem describes, but most of the time she wasn't able to even come close to being my ideal mother because she was drunk. Very early, I began pouring all my love and devotion and energy into her, hoping to get back what I needed from her, to get back what I was giving." Lisa paused and her eyes clouded for a moment. "I'm learning all this in therapy, and sometimes it hurts a lot to look at how it really was instead of how I always thought I could make it be. My mother and I were so close, but very early, so early I can't remember when it happened. I began to act like I was the mother and she was the child. I worried about her and tried to protect her from my father. I did little things to cheer her up. I tried hard to make her happy because she was all I had. I knew she cared for me because often she would tell me to come sit by her and we'd stay that way for a long time. Snuggled up together and not really talking, just holding on to each other. Now, when I look back, I realize I was always afraid for her, always waiting for something awful to happen, something that I should have been able to prevent if only I'd been careful enough. That's a tough way to live when you're growing up, but I never knew anything else. And it took its toll. By the time I was a teenager, I was having serious episodes of depression. Lisa laughed softly. What scared me most about the depression was that I couldn't take very good care of my mother when I was in the middle of it. You see, I was very conscientious, and so afraid of letting go of her, even for a little while. The only way I could let go of her was by grabbing onto someone else. She brought the tea on a red and black lacquered tray and placed it on the floor before us. When I was 19, I had the opportunity to go to Mexico with 2 girlfriends. It was absolutely the first time I had ever left my mother. We were to stay 3 weeks, and the second week I was there I met this terrifically handsome Mexican man who spoke beautiful English and was very gallant and attentive to me. By the 3rd week of my vacation he was asking me daily to marry him. He said he was in love with me and couldn't bear the thought of being without me now that he'd found me. Well, that was probably the perfect argument to use with me. I mean, he was saying he needed me, and everything in me responded to being needed. Besides, I think I knew at some level that I had to get away from my mother. It was so dark and dreary and grim at home, and this man was promising me a wonderful life. His family was wealthy. He had a fine education. He didn't do anything that I could see, but I thought that was because they had so much money he didn't have to work. That he had all that money available to him and still thought he needed me to make him happy made me feel terribly important and worthwhile. I called my mother and described him in glowing terms to her. She said, "I trust you to make the right decision." Well, she shouldn't have. I decided to marry him, which was definitely a mistake. You see, I had no idea how I felt about anything. I didn't know if I loved him or if he was what I wanted. I just knew that finally here was someone saying he loved me. I'd done very little dating, knew almost nothing about men. I'd been too busy taking care of things at home. I was so empty inside, and here was this person offering me what seemed like so much. And he said he loved me. I'd been doing all the loving for so long, and now it seemed as if it was my turn to be on the receiving end. And just in time, I knew I was almost totally drained, that I had nothing left to give. Well, we were married quickly, without his parents' knowledge. It sounds so crazy now, but at the time it all seemed to show how much he loved me, that he was willing to defy his parents to be with me. I thought then that he was rebelling by marrying me, just enough of a rebellion to make his parents angry, but not enough so they'd throw him out. I see it differently now. After all, he had secrets to keep about his sexual identity and behavior, and having a wife made him look more normal than not having one. I guess that was what he meant when he said he needed me. And of course I was a perfect choice, because being an American one would always, in his culture, be wrong, be suspect. Any other woman, especially one from his social class, seeing what I saw would have told someone sooner or later. Then it would have been all over town. But who was I going to tell? Whoever talked to me, and who would believe me? I don't think any of this was deliberate or calculated on his part, though. any more than my reasons for marrying him were. We just fit together and we thought, at first, it was love. Anyway, after the wedding, guess what? We had to go home and live with these people who hadn't even been informed we were marrying. Oh, it was dreadful. They hated me and I got the feeling they had been angry with him for quite some time already. I couldn't speak a word of Spanish. His whole family could speak English, but they wouldn't. I was totally shut out and isolated, and terribly afraid right from the beginning. He left me alone in the evenings a lot, so I just stayed in our room, and finally learned to go to sleep. Whether he came home or not, I already knew how to suffer. I'd learned that at home. Somehow, I thought this was the price you paid to be with someone who loved you, that it was normal. He often came home drunk and amorous, and that was really awful. I could smell other women's perfume on him. One night I'd already been asleep a long time and some noise woke me. There was my husband, drunk, admiring himself in front of the mirror, in my nightgown. I asked him what he was doing and he said, "Don't you think I look pretty?" He made a little face and I saw he was wearing lipstick. Finally, something snapped. I knew I had to get out of there. Up until then I had been miserable, but I was sure it was my fault, that somehow I could be more loving and make him want to stay with me, make him get his parents to acknowledge me, to like me, even. I was willing to try harder, just like with my mother. But this was different. This was crazy. I had no money and no way of getting any, so the next day I told him I would tell his parents what he'd done if he didn't take me to San Diego. I lied and told him I had already called my mother and she was expecting to meet me, and that if he would just take me there I'd never bother him again. I don't know where I got the courage because I actually thought he might kill me or something, but it worked. He was so afraid of his parents knowing, you see. He drove me to the border without a word and gave me bus fare to San Diego and about $15. So I ended up in San Diego at a friend's house. I stayed there until I got a job and then I got a place with 3 roommates and began a pretty wild lifestyle. By now I had absolutely no feelings of my own. I was completely numb, but I still had this tremendous compassion, which got me into a lot of trouble. I went home with a great many men during the next 3 or 4 years because I felt sorry for them. I'm lucky things didn't ever get really out of hand. Most of the men I got involved with had drug or alcohol problems. I met them at parties or occasionally in bars, and again, they seemed to need me to understand them, to help them, which was like a magnet for me. Lisa's attraction to men of this type made perfect sense in terms of her history with her mother. The closest thing to being loved that Lisa had experienced was being needed, so when a man appeared to need her he was, in effect, offering her love. He did not have to be kind, or giving, or caring. That he was needy was enough to stir the old, familiar feelings in her and kindle her caregiving response. Her story continued. My life was a mess, and so was my mother's. It would be difficult to say which of us was sicker. I was 24 when my mother got sober. She did it the hard way. All by herself, alone in her living room, she made that phone call to AA and asked for help. They sent 2 people over to talk to her and they took her to a meeting that afternoon. She hasn't had a drink since. Lisa smiled softly at her mother's courage. It must have really gotten unbearable because she was a very proud lady. Too proud to call unless she was desperate. Thank God I wasn't there to see it. I probably would have worked so hard to make her feel better that she never would have gotten real help. My mother had started drinking really heavily when I was about 9. I would come home from school and she would be lying on the couch, passed out, with a bottle next to her. My older Sister used to get angry with me and tell me that I wouldn't look at reality because I would never admit how bad it was, but I loved my mother too much to even let myself notice that she was doing anything wrong. We were so close, she and I. So when things began to fall apart between her and my dad, I wanted to make it up to her. Her happiness was the most important thing in the world to me. I felt I had to make it all up to her for what my father was doing that hurt her, and the only thing I knew how to do was be good. So, I was good in every way I knew how. I would ask her if she needed help with anything. I cooked and cleaned without being asked. I tried not to need anything for myself. But nothing worked. I realize now that I was taking on two incredibly powerful forces: my parents' deteriorating marriage and my mother's advancing alcoholism. I didn't have a chance of making it right, but that didn't keep me from trying, and from blaming myself when I failed. Her unhappiness hurt me so, you see. And I knew there were still areas where I could improve. My schoolwork, for instance. I wasn't doing too well because, of course, I was under a lot of pressure at home, what with trying to take care of my brother and fixing meals and finally getting a job to help out. In school I only had energy for one brilliant accomplishment a year. I would plan carefully and bring it off to show the teachers I wasn't dumb. But the rest of the time I barely squeaked by. They said I wasn't really trying. They didn't know how hard I was trying to hold everything together at home. But the report cards weren't good. And my father would yell and my mother would cry. I blamed myself for not being perfect. And I kept trying harder than ever. In a severely dysfunctional home such as this, where there are apparently insurmountable difficulties, the family will focus on other, simpler problems that hold some promise of being solvable. Lisa's schoolwork and grades thus became everyone's focus, including Lisa's. The family needed to believe that this problem was one which, if rectified, would bring harmony. The pressure on Lisa was intense. Not only was she trying to solve her parents' problems while saddled with her mother's responsibilities, she was also identified as a cause of this unhappiness. Because of the monumental proportions of her task, she never experienced success, in spite of her heroic efforts. Naturally, her sense of self-worth suffered terribly. One time I called my best friend and said to her, "Please let me talk to you. You can read a book if you want. You don't have to listen to me. I just need someone on the other end of the phone." I didn't believe that I even deserved to have someone listen to my problems. But she did listen, of course. Her father was a recovering alcoholic who went to AA. She went to Alateen, and I think she gave me the benefit of that program just in the way she listened to me. It was so hard for me to admit anything was wrong, unless it was my father's fault. I really hated him. Lisa and I sipped our tea in silence for a few moments while she struggled silently with bitter memories. When she could continue, she said simply, "My father left us when I was 16. My sister was already gone. She was 3 years older than I, and as soon as she turned 18 she got a full-time job and left home. That left just my mother, my brother, and me. I think that I was beginning to go under with the pressure I put on myself to keep her safe and happy, and to take care of my brother. So I went to Mexico and got married, came home and got divorced, and then ran around with a lot of men for years. It was about 5 months after my mother got into the AA program that I met Gary. The first day I spent time with him he was stoned. We rode around in the car with my girlfriend, who knew him, and he was smoking a joint. He liked me and I liked him, and we both separately passed on that information through my girlfriend. So pretty soon he called me and came over to visit me. I had him sit for me while I sketched him just for fun, and I remember becoming overwhelmed with feeling for him. It was the most powerful sensation regarding a man I'd ever had. He was stoned again, and he was sitting there talking slowly, you know, the way people do on pot, and I had to stop drawing because my hands started shaking so hard I couldn't do anything. I held the sketch pad up at an angle, leaning it against my knees for stability, so he couldn't see my hands shake like that. Today I know that what I was responding to was the fact that he talked just like my mother did when she'd been drinking all day. The same long pauses and carefully selected words that came out sort of overemphasized. All the caring and love that I felt for my mother were combined with my physical attraction to him as a good-looking man. But at that time I had no idea why I was responding the way I did, so of course I called it love. That Lisa's attraction to an involvement with Gary began so soon after her mother stopped drinking was not a coincidence. The tie between the two women had never been broken. Even though considerable geographic distance separated them, her mother had always been Lisa's first responsibility and deepest attachment. When Lisa realized that her mother was changing, recovering from alcoholism without her help, she reacted out of fear at not being needed. Soon Lisa established a new relationship of depth with another addictive individual. After her marriage, her involvements with men had been casual, until her mother's sobriety. She fell in love with an addict when her mother turned to members of Alcoholics Anonymous for help and support in getting well. Lisa needed a relationship with an actively addictive person in order to feel normal. She went on to describe the 6-year relationship that followed. Gary moved in with her almost at once and stated clearly during their first couple of weeks together that if there were ever a choice to be made between buying dope and paying the rent, the dope would always come first with him. Lisa, though, was sure he would change, that he would come to value what they had together and want to preserve it. She was sure she could make him love her the way she loved him. Gary rarely worked, and when he did, true to his word, his income went for the most expensive marijuana or hashish. Lisa joined him in his drug use at first, but when she found it interfered with her ability to earn a living, she stopped. She was, after all, responsible for supporting them both, and she took her responsibility seriously. Whenever she thought about telling him to leave, after he'd taken money from her purse again, or there was a party going on in their apartment when she came home, exhausted from work, or he hadn't come home all night, he would buy a bag of groceries or have dinner waiting for her, or tell her he had gotten some cocaine especially for them to share, and her resolve would melt while she said to herself that he really did love her after all. His stories of his childhood would make her cry with pity for him, and Lisa was sure, if she loved him enough, that she could make up for all that he had suffered. She felt she must not blame him or hold him responsible for his behavior now, since he'd been so damaged as a child, and she quite forgot her own painful past as she concentrated on remedying his. Once, during an argument when she refused to give him a check her father had sent her for a birthday present, he plunged a knife into every canvas in the apartment. Lisa continued with her story. I was getting so sick by then that I actually thought, this is my fault, I shouldn't have made him so angry. I was still taking the blame for everything, trying to fix the unfixable. The next day was Saturday. Gary was gone for a while and I was cleaning up the mess, crying and throwing out 3 years worth of paintings. I had the television on to distract myself, and this woman who had been beaten by her husband was being interviewed. You couldn't see her face, but she was talking about how her life had been, and she described some pretty awful scenes and then said, I didn't think it was that bad because I could still stand it. Lisa shook her head slowly. That's what I was doing, staying in this terrible situation because I could still stand it. When I heard that woman, I said, aloud, but you deserve something more than the worst thing you can stand. And suddenly I heard myself and I started crying really hard because I realized, so did I. I deserved more than the pain and the frustration and the expense and the chaos. With every ruined painting I said to myself, I won't live this way anymore. When Gary came home, his things were packed and waiting for him outside the front door. Lisa had called her best friend, who brought her husband with her, and the couple helped Lisa to have the courage to tell Gary to leave. There wasn't a scene because my friends were there, so he just left. Later, he started calling me and threatening me, but I wouldn't respond in any way, so after a while he gave up. I want you to understand, though, that I didn't do it by myself, not respond, I mean. I called my mother that afternoon, after all the dust had settled, and told her the whole story. She told me to begin going to Al-Anon meetings for adult children of alcoholics. It was only because I was in so much pain that I listened to her. Al-Anon, like Alateen, is a fellowship of relatives and friends of alcoholics who come together to help one another and themselves recover from their obsession with the alcoholic in their lives. Adult children meetings are for the grown sons and daughters of alcoholics who want to recover from the effects of having lived as children with alcoholism. Those effects include most of the characteristics of loving too much. That was when I began to understand myself. Gary, for me, was what alcohol had been for my mother. He was a drug that I couldn't do without. Until the day I made him leave, I had always been terrified that he would go away. So I did everything I could to please him. I did all the things that I'd done as a child: work hard, be good, not ask for anything for myself, and take care of what was someone else's responsibility. Because self-sacrifice had always been my pattern, I wouldn't have known who I was without someone to help, or some suffering to endure. Lisa's deep attachment to her mother, and the great sacrifice of her own needs and wants that this attachment required, prepared her for later love relationships that involved suffering, rather than any kind of personal fulfillment. She had made a profound decision as a child that she would rectify any difficulty in her mother's life through the power of her own love and selflessness. That decision soon became unconscious, but it continued to drive her. Totally unaccustomed to assessing ways of securing her own well-being but expert in promoting the well-being of others, she moved into relationships that held the promise of another opportunity to make everything right for another person through the force of her love. True to her history, failure to win that love through her efforts only made her try harder. Gary, with his addiction, his emotional dependency, and his cruelty, combined all the worst attributes of Lisa's mother and father. Ironically, that accounted for her attraction to him. If the relationship we had with our parents was essentially a nurturing one, with appropriate expressions of affection, interest, and approval, then as adults we tend to feel comfortable with people who engender similar feelings of security, warmth, and positive self-regard. Further, we will tend to avoid people who make us feel less positive about ourselves through their criticism or manipulation of us. Their behavior will be aversive for us. However, if our parents related to us in hostile, critical, cruel, manipulative, overbearing, overdependent, or otherwise inappropriate ways, that is what will feel right to us when we meet someone who expresses, perhaps very subtly, undertones of the same attitudes and behaviors. We will feel at home with people with whom our earlier unhealthy patterns of relating are recreated, and perhaps awkward and ill at ease with gentler, kinder, or otherwise healthier individuals. or else, because the challenge of trying to change someone in order to make that person happy, or to gain withheld affection or approval is missing, we may simply experience ourselves as feeling bored with healthier people. Boredom often covers mild to intense feelings of awkwardness, which women who love too much tend to feel when out of the familiar role of helping, hoping, and paying more attention to someone else's welfare than to their own. There is in most adult children of alcoholics, and in offspring from other kinds of dysfunctional homes as well, a fascination with people who spell trouble and an addiction to excitement, especially negative excitement. If drama and chaos have always been present in our lives, and if, as is so often the case, we were forced to deny many of our own feelings while growing up, we often require dramatic events to engender any feeling at all. Thus, we need the excitement of uncertainty, pain, disappointment, and struggle just to feel alive. Lisa ended her story. The peace and quiet of my life after Gary left drove me wild. It took everything I had not to call him and start it all over again. But I slowly got used to a more normal life. I'm not dating anyone now. I know that I'm still too sick to have a healthy relationship with a man. I'd go right out and find another Gary. So I'm making myself my project for the first time, rather than trying to change someone else. Lisa, in relation to Gary, like her mother in relation to alcohol, suffered from a disease process, a destructive compulsion over which she had no control by herself. Just as her mother had developed an addiction to alcohol and was unable to stop drinking on her own, so Lisa had developed what was also an addictive relationship with Gary. I do not make this analogy, or use the word addictive lightly, in comparing the two women's situations. Lisa's mother had become dependent on a drug, alcohol, to avoid experiencing the intense anguish and despair that her life situation held for her. The more she used alcohol to avoid feeling her pain, the more the drug operated on her nervous system to produce the very feelings she was trying to avoid. It ultimately increased rather than diminished the pain, so of course she drank even more. Thus, she spiraled into addiction. Lisa, too, was attempting to avoid anguish and despair. She suffered from a profound underlying depression, the roots of which traced back to her painful childhood. This underlying depression is a common factor in children from all types of severely dysfunctional homes, and their ways of dealing with it, or more typically, avoiding it, vary depending on their sex, their disposition, and their childhood role in the family. By the time they reach their teen years, many young women, like Lisa, keep their depression at bay through developing the style of loving too much. As they engage in chaotic but stimulating and distracting interactions with unhealthy men, they are too excited to sink into the depression that lingers just under the level of awareness. In this way, a cruel, indifferent, dishonest, or otherwise difficult partner becomes for these women the equivalent of a drug, creating a means of avoiding their own feelings, just as alcohol and other mood-altering substances create for drug-addicted persons a temporary avenue of escape, and one from which they dare not be separated. And, as with alcohol and drugs, these unmanageable relationships that provide the needed distraction also contribute their own cargo of pain. In a parallel with the developing disease of alcoholism, dependence on the relationship deepens to the point of addiction. To be without the relationship, that is, to be alone with oneself, can be experienced as worse than being in the greatest pain the relationship produces, because to be alone means to feel the stirrings of the great pain from the past combined with that of the present. The two addictions are parallel in this way, and equally difficult to overcome. A woman's addiction to her partner, or to a series of unsuitable partners, may owe its genesis to a variety of family problems. Ironically, adult children of alcoholics are more fortunate than those from other dysfunctional backgrounds because, at least in the larger cities, Al-Anon groups often exist to support them as they work through their problems with self-esteem and with relationships. Recovery from relationship addiction involves getting help from an appropriate support group in order to break the cycle of addiction, and to learn to seek feelings of self-worth and well-being from sources other than a man unable to foster those feelings. The key is in learning how to live a healthy, satisfying, and serene life without being dependent on another person for happiness. Sadly, for those enmeshed in addictive relationships and those caught in the web of chemical addiction, the conviction that they can handle the problem by themselves often prevents them from seeking help and thus precludes the possibility of recovery. It is because of this conviction, I can do it on my own, that things sometimes must get so much worse before they can begin to get better for so many people struggling with either of these diseases of addiction. Lisa's life had to become hopelessly unmanageable before she could admit that she needed help to overcome her addiction to pain. And Lisa's condition wasn't helped any by the fact that both suffering for love and being addicted to a relationship are romanticized by our culture. From popular songs to opera, from classical literature to Harlequin romances, from daily soap operas to critically acclaimed movies and plays. We are surrounded by countless examples of unrewarding, immature relationships that are glorified and glamorized. Over and over again we are instructed by these cultural models that the depth of love can be measured by the pain it causes and that those who truly suffer, truly love. When a singer plaintively croons about not being able to stop loving someone even though it hurts so much, there is, perhaps because of the sheer force of repeated exposure to this point of view, something in us that accepts that what the singer expresses is the way it should be. We accept that suffering is a natural part of love and that the willingness to suffer for the sake of love is a positive rather than a negative trait. Very few models exist of people relating as peers in healthy, mature, honest, non-manipulative, and non-exploitative ways, probably for two reasons. First, in all honesty, such relationships in real life are fairly rare. Second, since the quality of emotional interplay in healthy relationships is often much subtler than the blatant drama of unhealthy relationships, its dramatic potential is usually overlooked in literature, drama, and songs. If unhealthy styles of relating plague us, perhaps it is because that is very nearly all we see and all we know. Because of the dearth of examples of mature love and healthy communication in the media, I have been entertaining a fantasy for years of taking over the script writing for one day's episode on each of the major soap operas. In my episode, all the characters would communicate with one another in honest, non-defensive, and caring ways. No lies, no secrets, no manipulations, no one who is willing to be someone else's victim, and no one doing the victimizing. Instead, for one day viewers would see people who are committed to having healthy relationships with each other, based on genuine communication. This style of relating would not only conflict sharply with the normal format of these programs but would also illustrate, by way of extreme contrast, how saturated we are with depictions of exploitation, manipulation, sarcasm, revenge-seeking, deliberate baiting, piquing of jealousy, lying, threatening, coercing, and so on, none of which contribute to healthy interplay. When you think about what one segment portraying honest communication and mature love would do to the quality of these continuing sagas, consider also what the same alteration in communication style would do in each of our lives. Everything happens in a context, including the way we love. We need to be aware of the damaging shortcomings of our societal view of love and to resist the shallow and self-defeating immaturity in personal relationships that it glamorizes. We need to consciously develop a more open and mature way of relating than what our cultural media seem to endorse, thus trading turmoil and excitement for a deeper intimacy.